All right, welcome everybody to PreVeteran's Military Transition 2.0 podcast. Jason and I here are going to talk about your gaps and misalignments. But more than that, we want you to know that you're not ready for your military transition right now. You may think you are, but you're not. And we would like to start addressing and fixing some of the things that we're talking about when we say you're not ready. And hopefully, we'll prove it to you today. And we'll be here to answer your questions after.
Yeah, it's great having everybody here. And what's really important about what Aaron is saying is we believe very strongly in you as the individual. Once you're actually armed with the tools and the know-how and the situational awareness to know where you're at, you can grow from there and be incredibly successful. But first part of that is self-awareness. And today, talking about your gaps and misalignments is making you self-aware. And then we can kind of tell you where to go from there. So let's talk about this slide real quick because it encapsulates everything very at a high level, and then we'll go a little bit deeper on the next slide. So the obvious takeaway from this, and it should be talked about in the national discourse, but for some reason is not, is that when you leave the military ecosystem and head to the private sector, they are not equal. In fact, there is a large gap between the two. And that large gap creates a bunch of problems, most of which is we don't talk about it. And it's something we really need to bring out and talk about very openly in the national discourse. Don't you think, Aaron?
Absolutely. And, there's some reasons I think that we don't talk about it because a lot of veteran organizations want to focus on getting veterans hired at companies, advocating for veterans, and showcasing veteran talent to companies that are potential employers. And we 100% are behind that cause. I think where we're missing the mark, though, is that in the effort to advocate for veterans and tell our story about our background and experience and how we add value, in doing that, we're trying to say something which I think is a little bit of an overstatement, that saying that we're plug and play and that we're ready for employment on day one out of the military without having done the work that's needed to address these gaps and misalignments, because the two environments are so very much different, that there is some learning and training that needs to happen in between those two things. And that's where you see that gap. So we're here to give solutions and not just outline a problem, but we want to let you know that you're not hearing that message for a very good reason, because folks who advocate for veterans believe that putting a message like this out there is going to harm veterans. But in reality, this is the only way to fix the problems that we have out there.
That's exactly right. And we should just be talking about it. It's like an obvious if you zoom out from where you're at right now. Since the systems are so different, you're going to have gaps and misalignments. Guess what I did? I had big gaps and misalignments in my first two jobs in industry. I was in industry 10 years with aerospace defense, ranging from entry level business development to executive. And the sobering reality was I was not prepared for either one of those roles. So the efficiency in me picking up my job and being effective for the company was compromised significantly if I look back. And here's what's most important, right? So when we're talking about you as the individual, it's not just you, it's you and your family and then us as a community. So if you think that you are plug and play, we're kind of here to tell you you're not. And if you're here with an organization that wants to help veterans, we totally understand your intent of wanting to get them into these companies, but we have to address this individual training piece because it's not just them, the individual leaving, that is not prepared like I wasn't prepared for private sector employment. It is their family. And then when someone begins to struggle, it does have an impact on the relationships and the family within that. Now, we want to show you we have data that supports this claim that we're making. So when we say we're not plug and play, the landmark study in 2014 from Vet Advisor showed that 50% of transitioning military members leave their first job within 12 months. And then up to 70% leave within 2 years. Now, you may not know the context for that, but that is 4 times faster than our general public counterparts. And if you're in HR or if you're in DEI or if you're in different corporate entities that wish to hire veterans, this means we're a significant cost to the company, which means it really is difficult to make a business case out of that. And we want to fix that, not just for the individuals, but for the companies as well.
Absolutely. And that kind of high turnover is not good for the individual either, right? Not good for the company, not good for the individual because they're presumably out there getting a different job and they may have an employment a gap where they're unemployed. And so that's the last thing that we want to see, and why we're putting this message out there that we need to start this process earlier than we think we do. Because in our minds as military folks, we can cram for the test, right? We can, at the last second, study hard and really pass this military transition test. That's just not how it works. The transformation in your mindset and the work that's required to address these gaps and misalignments takes time. Building relationships outside of the military takes time. And if we don't invest that time early enough in our career, then we're left at the back end scrambling and trying to solve all these problems at once, and it can be overwhelming. So that's why we're trying to get this message out to folks as early as possible so that you can start thinking about this and taking
Yep.
action.
And it needs to be in the national discourse. So we would like to lead that conversation. And where we talk about an obvious high level, there's a gap between the two. Let's drill down a little bit to talk about these employment related gaps very specifically. So, for a little bit of context, we designed PreVeteran in the 2016 to 2020 time period and then we began our programming of our employment prep course. And in that pilot programming that we've done over the last 2 years with over 100 service members, these are the definitive conclusions we've come up with. Is you are going to have three types of gaps and misalignments. The first is a communications gap. The second is a mindset decision making gap. And then the third is a private sector alignment gap. These are the three largest things that are going to impact your ability to be successful as you leave the military and go to the private sector. One more comment about these. Not only are these gaps really significant in their own right, but they have to be addressed in the sequential order because, for example, talking about the far right side, the private sector alignment gaps, they're vastly different systems. But if you don't address the individual member's mindset prior to that, they're going to be questioning you and fighting you along the way in this new information. So we've not only discovered the gaps, but also the sequencing of how we treat those gaps in order to optimize the service member, which is what we're all about. We want to make the individual more successful. We want to make their family more successful, make them happier, healthier, and then obviously optimize them for the private sector work environment as well.
Absolutely. And what we're saying with this is that, again, going back to the environments are different, right? So a different environment requires a different way of communicating. It requires a different way of thinking and making decisions. And it requires alignment to the environment that you're going into. I mean, we see this all the time when you're making a major life change and you're doing something totally new. You're going to go through this same process with any major um, change like this, like military transition. So we think we've identified pretty well what this sequencing has to be, and we've proven it out. Over 2 years running our program and having over 100 veterans go through our program and find great success. So we want to get this information out there, and then please check out our website, preveteran.com. We have a lot more information on our program and how we support this system that you're seeing right here, how we're addressing those gaps and misalignments. Hear from our students, ask us questions, see what kind of outcomes we're getting, because um, it's all posted there, and I think you'd find the information really interesting and hopefully spark some thoughts and feelings in your mind as you're going through and preparing for how do I take the first step forward into my transition. I think a lot of people just are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So check out our website. Take the employment readiness quiz, also on the website, preveteran.com. There's a quick link there for the employment readiness quiz. Take that and see where you're at. It's a really good tool to evaluate. If you think you're fully prepared, go ahead and take the quiz and see what the results are. It only takes about 3 minutes. So um,
Absolutely. And I just want to finish up here and say, hey, thanks for taking the time to listen to us. The other thing that makes us really unique in the space is that we have complete trust in the fact that we can empower you with our tools and training to be able to do that. We believe in your ability to be self aware of the environment you're going into and then self regulating in a new environment, which is going to completely set you up for success in ways that you don't even really understand yet. The way to get started, like Aaron said, is to go to the website, make sure you're taking the employment readiness quiz. And then if you want to, following that, reach out and go through your results with us. We are more than happy to run through those because we really need you to help spread this message. The way we're going to impact our community for success for both the individual and the actual corporate or higher ed entity is to empower you. That's the path forward to success.
And hey, if you disagree with our assessment, we'd also love to hear from you. Let's start a discourse and see what your thoughts are about this. But like I said, having gone through the program myself as a student, and then seeing so many other veterans succeed out of this, we know it works. We know that you do need to get out of your own way in some regards with your mindset, and then start aligning to the private sector. And we see success with that every single day. So super encouraging. I think we need to keep beating the drum on this conversation and try to get it out there more, so that more folks are talking about this, because it will actually serve veterans at the end of the day, and it will serve employers who hire veterans. So we want to make better veterans, happier, healthier veterans at the end of the day. We want you and your family to enjoy your last couple of years in the military and really have a solid plan for when you get out. So that's why we're here. That's why we talk about these things, because we want you to succeed. All right. I think that's all we got today. But if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us on LinkedIn or join us on August 30th. We're having an employment prep webinar, which is totally free. Come armed with some questions, and I think we'll have some awesome information there to share with you. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.
See ya.